Hey guys, this is Bill Combs
and Jeff Newton,
and this is the Flashbang Creative Podcast. Alright guys, we're back. Hope you guys had a good 4th of July. This is being recorded on the 5th of July. We just got back in town from a nice vacation, and what are we going to talk about today, Jeff?
Today we are going to talk about why you got into this to begin with.
All right, so why did I get in this? Well, probably like 95% of all of our listeners, maybe even more. You know, you've got the few that just did it for money. I got into it because America, I mean, it's what I believe in. I wanted to push an initiative. I didn't want to just sell guns. I didn't want to just arm people. I wanted to do the whole gambit. I wanted to not only equip people with the proper equipment for their application, but I wanted to educate them along the way. And so I didn't really know how to do that. I didn't have a way forward. I knew the easiest way to get into the educational portion of things or segment would be, you know, check out the NRA. I knew that I could become an instructor, so I initially started researching what does it take to be an instructor. I'd been to plenty of courses, but I never really knew how easy or hard that path was going to be. Turns out it's pretty easy. Then in the meantime, I was building a gun for a buddy and had to do a transfer somewhere, and I knew that you had been an FFL for a while, and so naturally we went to high school together. I figured it'd be a great reunion, and I could pick your brain a little bit and figure out how you got into it, why you got into it, what you were doing, how you were going to grow, you know, all of that jazz. And so met up with you for what should have been a quick transfer because my wife was waiting in the car. and
with or without kids?
I don't remember if I had kids then or not. I probably had a kid. Yeah, I think I had my oldest. So yeah, she was out there with him. She was thrilled because I think I walked out of your place about an hour later, and I just told her that was awesome. Things are about to change. And I really had no idea. I just felt like we had a really good conversation. I learned a lot on how to become an FFL, which is a much more difficult, I should say, path than becoming an instructor, but not because of the obstacles per se. It's just there's not a lot of information out there. There's not a lot of people willing to help you, get the proper paperwork, get yourself squared away, especially as a home-based FFL.
Yeah, that entire process is one gigantic vetting process. You really have to, there's got to be a lot of want involved in that to overcome not only the red tape, but pretty much all of the defensive attitudes and personalities that try to knock you back or tell you can't do it until you show them the black and white ink on paper that says that you can.
So I felt the conversation went, pretty well. Told my wife, I think that I figured a way out or a way to kind of act on what I'd been talking about for years, which was, I didn't know at the time, but that was to become a dealer/instructor with really the overall intent to just push the movement, to push education, to basically get the gun grabbers or the anti-gun crowd. Around that time frame, it was under the previous administration. There was a lot of negativity, which there still is. Let's not get confused on the gun culture. And I just wanted to educate people. Anybody I came into contact with that found out, what I was wanting to do, or that I was, a quote unquote gun guy. I just tried to talk with them and educate them, and oftentimes that works best, rather than argue. Just take a stance and educate them as if you were talking to a child, not in a disrespectful way, but walk them through all of the unknowns, because they really don't have any idea what they're talking about. That's really the basis of their argument, is they're told one thing and that's what they believe. Guns are bad, they kill people, and a lot of them stand behind the fact that the United States has one of the highest murder rates, which is false. I don't have to tell our audience that. They know the statistics. We actually have a pretty low violent crime rate, and most gun deaths are suicide. I mean, everybody knows that, which you're not going to control that. So anyways, my stance was always education. I wanted to push education because I knew that would extend, what I not to sound, sappy here or anything, but basically extend the life of the Second Amendment. It was under attack under the previous administration, and we're only one administration away from the gun grabbers being back. Don't confuse that fact. And so the next day, I think, or maybe the day after, you ended up calling me and basically saying we should talk. And because like everything that we do, we see things in an entirely different point of view. And you had never looked into the instructional, vantage point or way to expand your business. But you still had that common goal. Your goal was to educate as well, but it was more from behind the counter. And of course, superior customer service. I mean, all the things that make a dealer your dealer. Everybody needs to have their guy, and that's what we wanted to become. And so we had a meeting, and one thing led to another. Started several companies together, and that's what we're doing. We're pushing the primary objective, which is not only to arm America, but to educate America and to turn those that hold a conflicting viewpoint to kind of open their eyes, wake them up.
Yeah, for me, I mean, the story is very much the same. We went over that really at length at the beginning of the podcast in the first episode. So if you guys are just joining us in later in the series, we would definitely encourage you to go back and start at the beginning and really understand the evolution of where we are and why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing, all the way down to creating this podcast to help specifically other firearm professionals take their business to the next level, or look at things a little bit differently, or just hear the same words coming from a fellow peer as reinforcement and as motivation or energy for them to keep on going and doing what you do. And in the last episode, we talked pretty much at length exclusively about not quitting and not giving up, because as all of us know in this particular industry, more often than not, when you're in the process, whether it be licensing, training, anything, you name it, and for the most part, it always feels like the odds are stacked against you, whether that be the rude employee behind the counter at the government agency you have to go talk to, or the next one, or always having to re-up those certifications or permits or licenses or whatever. It's just it's constant. It's never ending. It can sometimes feel like it's pulling you down and really get you in that rut of, why am I in this, or why should I keep going? A great example of that is our SOT. We're not only an FFL, but we deal in the Class 3 firearms of the NFA items, and so we have to renew our SOT every year, and it's $500. And now it's just $500, but at the same time, every time June comes around, it's like, that little glimpse of a thought rushes through your head, like, what else could I do with that $500, or what else would I do, or what if I just didn't do NFA items anymore, those kinds of things. But you really have to get back down to the heart of why you're in it. What were the thoughts that went through your mind, or what was the decision process that you went through all the way up to leading to that moment right before you took the first action. And I guess to turn this more on you versus us, that would be where I'd try to direct you to think back. We're talking specifically to professionals here, so all of you have taken some sort of action already in the past to obtain that status or obtain those skill sets. And so, think back through the progression that you went through and really find those moments that motivated you enough to step off the cliff the first time, or to take that leap, or to jump into action, even if the first action was researching what to do. That's really, if you really boil down to the absolute basics, kind of the blocking and tackling of what we've done is research, understand the process, figure out the objectives, and then actually act, or take action, period. Respond, execute. Don't take no for an answer. Just continue to plow forward. Always fail forward.
Well, and to that, it never gets easier. Yeah, I think that's at least my opinion, is no matter how big a business gets, or how long you've been in business, no matter what field that is, we're talking firearms here, obviously, but the only thing that changes is you get better. You get better at rolling with the punches. You get more experienced. Hell, when you started the process of getting your FFL, you were a home-based FFL. And hell, even the ATF guy was giving you a hard time, weren't they?
They didn't even cross the threshold of the house before they said, just to let you know, I've got this form here I'm going to need you to sign, because I talked to my supervisor in the driveway and there's no way you're going to get your FFL here in a residence. And I said, oh, really? Would you care to explain a little bit further? But, come inside first so we can actually have a conversation about why you feel that way. And as she rolled her eyes and came across the threshold, I said, can you give me a reason as to why you're just going to deny me right now? And as she opened her mouth to start saying that there happened to be a city ordinance within the city of Omaha, I said, oh, do you mean this city ordinance right here with the paperwork? Yes, that's the one I'm talking about, which is a form she had pre-filled out as a denial letter. And I said, perfect, because here's a letter from the one and only person in the city of Omaha city government that approves residential FFLs, that gave me a conditional use permit to allow this. And as she stared at me blankly like, well, the numbers match, so you must be talking about the same city ordinance. I said, so would you mind if we continued with the interview at this point? In a respectful way. I wasn't being a dick, but I was just trying, again, to overcome those imaginary objections that seem to always exist out there. She said, well, give me just a minute. Let me call this into my supervisor and we'll find out. So after a bit of a waffling conversation with her and her supervisor, she hangs up the phone and says, well, my supervisor thinks we should just move forward with the investigation and send this down to the district office when I get the paperwork done. I said, perfect. What do you need from me to make sure that you have everything you need when you submit this paperwork? And I had it all prepared, the conditional use permit, the homeowners association paperwork, the 50-point checklist was all prepared in a binder to hand to her and ready for her to walk out the door in a position to be successful, to get me what I wanted. And I think there's plenty of lessons in that story alone that we could probably dissect. But
I think you just said it. Position yourself at all times to get what you want. Nothing is easy. That's kind of what our last episode was about, and that's why this kind of echoes to those points. But you're always going to be up against the wall no matter what. That's competition. That's the free market. And these are government employees. They're not your competition, but they're an obstacle. So you have to smash the obstacle.
Yeah, I think to really hit home on that, there was really just the process alone was to even go back a step further than that. It was really about understanding, we hit this last time too, the things that separate you from others and the reasons that you chose to take the actions that you already have. You probably possess that mildly psychotic fiber in your being that makes you want to take this on to begin with, because the entrepreneurial individual that's just your natural tendency to plow through brick walls, to not take no for an answer, to find the yes in every opportunity. And you really can't forget that when the going gets tough. Not to go back to the don't quit piece, but you have to remember the emotional connection you have to why you're doing what you're doing, so that you can continue doing it. Because one of the only things that separates you from your competition is your ability to outlast them.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell, guys. I mean, you can never quit. Don't give up. That was our whole episode last time, and we try to keep these episodes, about a car ride length long. So we aim for 20 minutes, and that's why we weren't able to dive any deeper last episode. So this is sort of a follow through to just let you guys know that everybody faces challenges. We've faced several challenges, and we're by no means some industry leading gun dealer. We're not, but we've survived, and we compete, so we've learned lessons there. We've rolled with the punches, and that's what it's all about. It's all about going in the distance in the fight, because the longer you last, you can just look around you. We've done it in the past. You just watch around you and watch people fall, and as they fall, you keep picking up momentum, and you could relate that back to being an instructor in your area. I mean, I would challenge you to look and actually think about all the, depending on how long you've been in it, but instructors come and go, and that's because they price themselves out of the game, which we've talked about in the past. They operate on shoestring budgets, thinking that they need to beat Joe Blow down the road, who only charges $50 for a course. And the reality of it is you can't sustain that. You're not going to make money. Your time is going to be better allocated somewhere else, picking up an extra shift at work. And so in the long run, most people get out for that reason. The passion dies because they're not getting a reward. You have to monetize any sort of action you take. You can't. This isn't for charity. You have to take an income, and for anything to keep your spouse off your back. But which
is just one more of those obstacles.
Yeah, another one of those obstacles. You just got to get past that obstacle.
Yep.
So that's kind of we're at about 18 minutes here, Jeff. I mean, I think that's what the moral of this podcast is just hang in there, roll with the punches, and reach out if you guys are struggling or have any issues. No matter what field you're in, be it education, distribution, manufacturing, it doesn't matter. We can help you find some solutions. And most of our processes that we utilize come from our background. Our background was not always in the firearms space. And because of that diverse background, we've been able to be successful, and we are completely willing to share that knowledge because that coincides with our cause.
Yeah, just to echo that, I mean, I can't think of any random phone call or email that we've received where we haven't gone out of our way to help the individual on the other end, because in the end, it's not about, again, transactions, it's about relationships. And if we invest in those relationships now, they'll come around eventually, and if they don't, we'll get satisfaction out of seeing the other individual take from that transaction or that relationship exchange, where we're just in it to help people. And if you start from the right place, which is giving, then eventually you won't have to worry about taking.
I 100% agree with that. I'm kind of I don't know what you want to call it, but normally I never bought into the whole what goes around comes around or karma or anything like that, but I've seen it, in business of all places where it's cutthroat. You give something away to someone, or just, show them the way and don't ask anything for it. It could be 6 months down the road. All of a sudden someone's calling you and saying, hey, yeah, Ted such and such, he recommended you guys, had great things to say about you, and that ends up in a sale. So it's, that pay it forward saying that exists. Don't ever discount that.
Just wanted to follow up again and say thank you to the people that reached out after the last episode. You liked, commented, shared, reviewed the podcast on iTunes and on Google Play. That's really what keeps this podcast going, because that's all that iTunes cares about as far as ranking. And so to get found and to help other people, take the moment to do that if you would.
Thanks, guys. Catch you next week. To find out more, you can find us on Facebook at Flashbang Creative, or you can visit us on our website at flashbangcreative.us.